Wealth begins with wisdom. Wisdom is not a higher IQ. It is when knowledge becomes actionable and produces something. I want you to get this so deep. Wisdom is when knowledge becomes actionable and it produces something. It is the skill that is necessary for solving complex problems at a high level. It's the skill that is necessary for solving complex problems at a high level. Remember, the Hebrew word actually translates wisdom into skill. Okay? Wisdom equals mastery. What does that mean? Mastery means this. It means that you understand your skill deeply. It's mind-blowing to me when I'll go into a public establishment and someone's working there and I ask them a question and they look at me like I've got four heads and their answer is I don't know. First of all, if you don't know, go find out. Go ask somebody else that can help you, right? If you're in a place of business, go find out. So know your skill deeply. It's so important that you do that. Research it inside and out. Figure out how to do it, okay? Mastery looks like you know your skill deeply. It looks like this. You perform it consistently under pressure. Let me tell you something. You have not mastered a thing and you cannot be great at that thing until you can do it at a high level under pressure. I would tell my boys that all the time, and Haley, when they were in sports. I want to be able to do this, Dad. I want to do this. Okay, you have to practice because you're not great at this thing until you can do it under pressure, whether that's with defense on you or, for Haley, it was serving the volleyball with the game on the line or setting, whatever it is. You're not great at anything until you can actually do that thing under pressure. So what does that do? It removes the ability for us to be imposters, right? It removes the ability. And you can tell when you're talking to people, you need to find out, what are you doing at a high level? What is it that you're winning at? And how can I tell, has it moved into mastery? It actually is this. Mastery is not just doing it at a high level under pressure, but it means that I can apply it across multiple different platforms, multiple different situations. So my mastery doesn't go down because the problem becomes a little more complex. Does that make sense? So if I'm really operating in wisdom, and this is what Solomon did. This is what Solomon did. And the other thing is, I moved from deliberate practice into perfect execution. Now, when I say perfect, I don't mean that you get everything right all the time. That's not what I mean, right? But I mean that I have matured in my skill, in my wisdom, so that I am able to execute flawlessly most of the time. Let me give you an example. It means that I can do the thing, whatever the skill is, whatever the wisdom is in my life, without having to actually think about it. Those of you that have tennis shoes on that you tied today, how much thought did you put into tying your shoes? None, right? You mastered it. You mastered it a long time ago. You literally go down, you do the skill. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to think about it. You just tie your shoe and you move on. You mastered the skill. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what Solomon did. That's what sets people apart who are mediocre and who are doing things at an extremely high level. Wisdom, that is a skill that moves to mastery. Does that make sense to you guys? Y'all understand that? Okay. So the next level of this, of growth, is mastery stacking. So I continue to develop skills and then I stack that skill on top of a skill, right? So if I were going to use Diana, as an example, she's mastered cutting and color, and she's mastered now doing extensions. She continues to grow the skill set, and it's moving into that thing. So it's mastery stacking, and it applies to whatever you're doing. Okay, it applies to whatever your service is, whatever your venue or your line of work is. Okay, does that make sense? So mastery stacking. So number one, he pursued wisdom and understanding for justice. For justice, he wanted to be able to discern how to solve other people's problems, and he did that by mastery. Here's the next one. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be very vulnerable with you on this one. This one has been the most difficult for me. Okay. And it's been the most difficult for me because I have always been able to trust me. I don't know what it is. It's built into the mind of an only child or what it is. You know, I didn't need people to play with me. I could make it up. I'd have 14 imaginary friends and we'd have a good time. When I got tired of them, I'd kick them out. You understand what I'm saying? That's I trusted me, and this has been a difficult thing. But if you're going to scale at a high level, you're going to have to look at what Solomon did. Number two, Solomon's business model is a masterclass in leveraging partnerships, strategic alliances, and joint ventures. And I'll tell you where I learned this the most with the most zeros is in real estate investing. I have made money on deals that I did not get the deal. I did not do the marketing to get the deal. I didn't have to do anything. But the people who had those things, I brought them a buyer. Or if I had all of that and didn't have the buyer, someone else brings the buyer. We do what's called a joint venture. They get paid, I get paid. We leave and it's done. That's where I learned it the best. But listen, if you're going to scale at a high level, once again, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Find someone that you can leverage their wisdom and their mastery into what you're doing so that you can scale at a high level. Okay. Solomon did this to exponentially multiply his results. He consistently identified gaps in his own capabilities and filled them by aligning with partners who possessed complementary assets. This looks like asking this question right here. And I've mentioned this to you a couple of times, but I want you to get this. I want it to go deep. Become proficient at asking this question. Who, not how. Now, there's some things you got to figure out. There's some things that you have to do in order to get to mastery, right? But beyond that, if there is someone who has the processes already down, I don't need to learn that process. I need to find out who they are and I need to pay them to do it at an efficient level because they're better at it than I am. This is why I pay people to cut my yard. Do I have the ability to cut my yard? Absolutely. Am I concerned about saving $50, $60 a week or every 2 weeks to make it look like I would want it to look like over, it would take me probably 3 or 4 hours, where it takes a professional, they come out in an hour, they're done. It's trimmed better than the way I know how to do it. It looks better. It's got lines that I'm not going to have because I'm going to be like this because I understand what my attention to detail is. Do you understand what I'm saying? But so it's not about how. I'm not even looking to go do a YouTube video to teach me how to cut straight lines. You know what I'm saying? Who can do it better than me and do it faster and more efficient? Tons of people. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to save my time. Why? Because my time is valuable. My time is valuable. Now, there's other things I like to do. I like to get away. I like to sit in a tree stand and hunt. I'm not going to pay anybody to do that. I'm going to sit there and do that myself. That's my time that I enjoy doing it. But when I'm trying to be efficient, I'm asking who can do this, not how. Does that make sense? Leveraging partnerships, okay? Leveraging partnerships. All right. Solomon, again, you find all this in the scripture that I gave you. Solomon used leverage to secure a labor force that was twice the size of the largest labor force that has ever been put together for a single project. There's a specific dam in China, and it took like 30, 40,000 workers to build this dam. One of the first things you see, Solomon built a workforce immediately of 80,000 people. So he used leverage to secure a labor workforce. He used leverage to secure a logistics operation. He literally built a fleet of ships that transported raw goods back and forth and made an absolute killing doing it. He used leverage to secure trade routes for timber and raw materials. He used leverage to secure strategic military alliances. He used leverage to secure a luxury real estate portfolio. The temple and his house are not the only things he built. He built his wife a house, Pharaoh's daughter, a separate house. He built a cottage in Lebanon. He literally had a luxury real estate portfolio that he built. How many of you know what when I use the word arbitrage? Do you know what that means? No? So arbitrage is someone has an asset and I'm going to utilize that asset to make money for me. So I'm paying them a fee, but I'm going to use that asset to make money on their actual asset. So I don't own it, I'm actually renting it. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's important. People do this in real estate a lot of times in short-term rentals. Okay, it's a strategy where you can go into a city and you can find, maybe another term would be subleasing, but you can find a spot that would be good for a short-term rental. What I mean by short-term rental is like an Airbnb, and you would rent that from them. You would make an agreement, rent that from them, and then you would put that on your Airbnb market. Okay, and now you're renting out or subleasing their thing. So that would be called Airbnb arbitrage. Okay, Solomon was doing this back in the day, but he was doing it in the defense industry. So defense industry arbitrage. He monopolized the chariot and horse trade corridor as a land bridge between Africa and Asia. This is what this dude was doing. He was buying chariots and horses at a good price out of Egypt, and he was then selling them to the Hittites for a profit and other countries, because the way that Israel was positioned, they were the bridge between Africa and Asia. It's bad to the bone. I mean, that's what this dude was doing. He's buying chariots that are not his. He's buying war horses that are not his and selling them to other kings and other monarchs at a premium profit. So defense industry arbitrage. Let me give you this one because I want you to see this. So 1 Kings chapter 10, 29. A chariot was imported from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver and a horse for 150. And by the same means, they exported them to all the kings of the Hittites and to the kings of the Armenians. So this dude is a middleman. That's what he's doing. He's building infrastructure to be a middleman. I have made the most money in my life being a middleman. I'm serious. I like to think that I'm creative, and I like to think that I can push the envelope. But an inventor, it's not who I am. It's not who I am. But I know who I am. I'm really, really good at making an adjustment. That's why if you need a coach, you need me in your life, because I'm going to look at what you're doing and I'm going to tell you this is the adjustment that you can make, and this is what you can do. You don't have to do that. I'm just saying that's what I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm good at. That's why I'm a good offensive coordinator on a football field, because I can look at the defense and see what they're doing and make the adjustment. It's just what he gifted me to do. Solomon was a middleman, and I have owned it. I don't have to invent it. You invent it. You do it. You be the how, and let me come be the who to sell it or make an adjustment to it to make you multiple zeros. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is what Solomon was doing. He built an infrastructure that allowed him to do these things, and so he did all of those things right there. Here's the other thing he used partnerships for. He was an expert team builder. Now, I'm not going to give you all of the Hebrew names but I'm going to tell you what he did, okay? You can break this down and you can go in there and look at it. And if you want to see what their actual role was in Scripture, I can send that to you. I mean, you can figure it out. But he was the CEO, okay? He had a chief compliance and general counsel that kept him rolling. Why is this important? Because you need to build a team around you that is the who for the how that you don't know how to do. Whether that's an accountant, legal counsel, whatever, mentors, whatever it is, you need to build a team around you so that you can focus on what you are good at and mastering that and getting that out there. Okay. So you had a chief compliance officer, he had a chief of staff, he had a chief communications officer, he had a chief strategy officer, he had a chief operating officer. So he had a national sales or regional VP, whatever you want to call it. He had a chief financial officer, and then he had a VP of human resources or operations. This is what it looked like. Let me go ahead and give it to you. So the chief compliance, it was the chief priest. Okay, the chief of staff, that were secretaries. The communications officer, it was called a recorder. Okay, it was a scribe. It was a recorder. He was the communications officer. His strategy officer was his friends. It literally lists in his team that these were his friends that he consulted with. Okay, they were strategy. Chief operating officer was the commander of the army. The national sales rep was the head of the deputies. The chief financial officer was the palace administrator, and the VP of human resources was the labor director who managed that whole thing. These are all the things that Solomon did with strategic partnerships. He leveraged those things. What happens with leverage, guys, is it builds synergy. Do you know how synergy works? I was talking to Chad about this a couple of weeks ago. Here's how synergy works. If I can lift 200 pounds and Timmy can lift 200 pounds, together we should be able to lift 400 pounds, right? But what synergy does is it allows us to lift 600 pounds. You use leverage to secure what you don't have. You use leverage to secure what you don't have. And there's tons of strategies around that. Everybody good? Number 3. This was Solomon's model. Coaching and consulting. He absolutely used wisdom as a premium service. Based on the gifts that God had given him, he became a consultant to other monarchs, leaders, and business owners for a recurring profit. He made himself available to exercise the gift of wisdom that God had given him to serve people at a high level for a premium price. Solomon's annual revenue, the annual revenue, back in the day, is estimated. Now, when you listen to this, $5 to $8 billion annually. That's astronomical as to what it would be worth today. $5 to $8 billion annually. Estimated to be somewhere between 50 and 100 billion over the lifetime of his reign. I mean, that's beyond the richest guys that are walking today. So coaching and consulting. This included content creation. This included content creation. It is easier today to make money online than it ever has been, ever. I don't like being in front of a camera. There are so many tools that you can use to get your message out there. I don't love it either. Standing in front of hundreds or even thousands of people and speaking, I'm fine. You put a camera in front of me, it's not what I love, right? But I'm finding out it creates engagement. It gets my message out there. He used content creation. How did he do that? 1 Kings 4:32. Let me give you this one. He composed some 3,000 proverbs and wrote 1,005 songs. Well, he's the wisest man that ever lived. Yeah, I know, but listen, let's keep reading. He could speak with authority about all kinds of plants, from the great cedar of Lebanon to the tiny hyssop that grows from the cracks in the wall. He could also speak about animals, birds, creatures, and fish. What's this dude doing? He's got all this wisdom, and he's out here writing songs about bullfrogs and butterflies. They've both been born again. Y'all know that song? Bullfrogs and butterflies. They've both been born again. He's writing about normal things. Do you understand that? But he's getting the content out there. And this is what the result was. Verse 34. And kings from every nation sent their ambassadors to listen to the wisdom of Solomon. Kings from every nation sent their ambassadors to listen to the wisdom of Solomon. The queen of Sheba came to him for consultation and to learn. Go read that story. The queen of Sheba comes and she looks at Solomon and she's like, this is better than everything I've heard. She compliments him greatly. She's like, your people love working for you. The people love being at your table. It's better than what I had seen. And it says she came with a list of questions. He answered every one of them. And when it pleased her, when she was pleased, she gave him spices and goods. And watch this, 9,000 pounds of gold. $416 million to be her consultant. That was a one-time thing. 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 23 through 25. So King Solomon became richer and wiser than any other king on the earth. People from every nation came to consult him and to hear the wisdom God had given him. Year after year, everyone who visited brought him gifts of silver, gold, clothing, weapons, spices, horses, and mules. His business model absolutely encompassed communicating the wisdom and the mastery that he had. Now, I've already told you, and I'm going to go over it again in a little bit, all of the different businesses that he had, all of the different streams that he had. I mean, I just went through that. I mean, we're talking logistics, we're talking about raw materials, trade routes, consulting, all of those things that I mentioned and more. And they would pay him this over and over and over again. It was a recurring thing. Which leads me to number 4, continual cash flow. Part of his business was creating continual cash flow. Do you know what is so amazing to me? You may or may not know this, but the idea of a weekly salary, it didn't even come about until the Industrial Revolution. And it came about because they wanted to make bookkeeping easier on the people. Up until that point, everyone made a daily wage. Why is that important? Because you spend money every day. Every single day you spend money. You're sitting here right now, you're spending money. Well, no, I'm not. I'm in here. This was free. I'm not. No, if your air conditioner or your heater's on at your house or your lights, you're spending money. Every single day you spend money. Do you all agree with that? Yes or yes? Yeah? So every day we spend money. But we've been trained to think that we should only make money once a week, or maybe bi-weekly, or maybe even monthly. We've been trained in this system to do that. And I'm telling you, if that's the case, you are not going to build generational wealth. You're going to have to create some sort of continual cash flow to where you are getting paid on a consistent basis that is not just built into your time and effort. That's just mathematically, it's impossible to make money on a generational level if I'm only trading my time and effort for money. And this is what Solomon did. 1 Kings chapter 10, verses 14 and 15. Each year, Solomon received about 25 tons of gold. Each year. So this is separate revenue from the consulting and all that other stuff. Each year, he received 25 tons of gold. $2.29 billion every year of gold came in. This did not include the additional revenue he received from merchants and traders, all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land. This was continual cash flow that kept coming in. Guys, this is important because it's a system that God outlines for us. Solomon was a master at building systems and infrastructure that sustained him day after day. He never one time, listen to this, he never one time captained those ships. He was never the captain of the ships that he built in the fleet. He was never carrying the raw goods. Never one time was he swinging a hammer at the temple. Never one time. He built the infrastructure to allow this to happen. He built the systems and the processes to put people in positions that would do this year after year after year. He didn't use his muscle to build his real estate portfolio. He used his brain. One of the first trades you learn about, he goes to King Hiram of Tyre. He goes to King Hiram of Tyre because he has access to craftsmen and the cedars of Lebanon. And he says, I need you to give me these things and I'll give you this. And here's what he does. He does relational sales. Shameless plug for my book again. Relational sales. He goes to him and says, listen, you've always had a great relationship with my father, David. And since you have, I get to build the temple. He didn't get to build it because he had blood on his hands. Will you help me do this? This thing pleased King Hiram. And he said, I will absolutely give you the craftsmen and the wood that you need. And I'll put them on rafts and send them up the river to you. And you don't have to pay me. Just give me food and provision for my workers. He used leverage and trade and did it. And here's why that's important. Because you also learn that the daily provision of food that Solomon used for his house, his temple, his staff, all of that stuff, $122,000 a day. He fed them all. He fed them all. Why am I telling you this stuff? Why am I throwing these numbers out here? Because he actually was living the generational lifestyle that you're longing for. He was actually doing something aligned with the Father, aligned with the kingdom. He was serving people. He was solving problems. And I'm telling you, it opens things up. He wasn't just thinking about himself. He didn't jump off the deep end until he started writing Ecclesiastes. And I know that. I understand that. Right? I understand Solomon jumped off the deep end, got involved with so many women and idols and all that stuff, and it's a sad, sad thing. But I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater when he taught all these other things that are so necessary that God said, you know what? I'm going to put this in Scripture so that you can have it and you can actually move toward it. Right? Make sense? Okay. He built trade routes and infrastructures that generated $2.29 billion annually passively. He did it passively, guys. Effort without leverage will always yield minimum return. You need to know that. Effort without leverage will always yield minimum return. I'm not going to go deep into this right now, just because it's not the time. But I could show you how to leverage the equity in your house to pay your house off faster if you still have a house using a HELOC. It's a strategy that absolutely works, and it's called leverage. It's just called leverage. It's leveraging what is already your money to pay off your house faster. If y'all want to know that at some point, then you can talk to me and I'll share that with you for sure. Okay. Leverage matters. Partnerships, joint ventures, strategic alliances. It matters, and it will cause you to scale at a level that you didn't even know. So what do I mean? How can I make that practical? I'll tell you right now. You go find a real estate deal. If you don't know how to do it, bring me in. I'll work with you. We'll make the real estate deal happen and we'll move forward. You'll get paid and I'll get paid. It's called leverage. You don't have to go out and learn all the tricks of the trade. It's exactly what you do. It's the same thing you can do with Darcy. Darcy's a real estate agent. You understand that's leverage, right? You hire a real estate agent. You're pulling somebody in who knows more about the business than you do to get you the result that you want. It's called leverage. It's called strategic partnership. It's what Solomon did at a really, really high level. Really high level. Okay. Everybody good? Number 5, multiple revenue streams. Have I made it clear that Solomon had multiple revenue streams. He actually gives us some scripture on this in Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 2. Divide your portion to 7 or even to 8, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on the earth. This is why it's so important. Any of the revenue streams could fail. As long as the other ones were running, the kingdom was still functioning, right? That's why multiple revenue streams are so important. That's why multiple revenue streams are so absolutely important.